Arizona in 1882 was a perilous time in the American Wild West, where only the bravest could survive. Despite this, there were individuals labeled as timid and unassertive by others. One of these people was Albert Stark, a gentle sheep farmer who finds himself in the town square of Old Stump. He is forced into a gunfight with another rancher, Charlie Blanche, due to a debt owed to Charlie. Albert tries every trick to avoid the confrontation, resorting to even mocking gestures with their shadows. When his efforts fail, Charlie shoots Albert in the leg. The onlookers disperse, and Albert's girlfriend, Louise, watches in disappointment. Albert and Louise later have a picnic by a river where he expresses regret over the gunfight. Louise confesses that she wants to end their relationship, explaining that although Albert is a nice person, she doesn't see a future together and needs to focus on herself. Despite Albert's declarations of love, she leaves him. The scene shifts to a saloon where a religious shoe repairman named Edward waits anxiously for his girlfriend, Ruth, with a flower. Ruth, a prostitute, is engaged in a physical encounter with a man. The brothel's manager, Millie, questions Edward's acceptance of Ruth's profession, but he stands by his feelings for her. Ruth eventually joins Edward, though Millie reminds her of a customer's request for a specific service. That evening, Albert, still reeling from losing Louise, joins Edward and Ruth at the saloon. Ruth offers him words of encouragement, highlighting that he still has much to live for. However, Albert launches into a tirade about the harsh realities of frontier life, where danger lurks at every turn, from wild animals to intoxicated individuals. Even mundane tasks like using the restroom instill fear in him. He mentions that the miners indulging in spicy ribs could perish from their own flatulence. Albert goes a step further, revealing that the town's mayor has been deceased outside for 3 days without anyone noticing. To emphasize his point, 2 wolves emerge and drag the mayor's body away to feast on it. Albert ends up becoming inebriated and riding his horse to Louise's residence in an attempt to reconcile with her, but his efforts are unsuccessful. The following day, outside of town, an elderly man is riding in his carriage with his dog, Plugger, clutching a piece of gold. Approaching rapidly are a gang of outlaws led by the infamous Clinch Leatherwood. He negotiates with the old man for his gold and instructs him to draw his gun so that Clinch can acquire it fairly without resorting to theft. Despite the old man pulling out his gun on Clinch's command to shoot on 3, Clinch breaches the agreement and shoots on 2, killing the old man despite his wife, Anna Barnes, protesting. Ignoring her objections, Clinch seizes the old man's map to Old Stump. The outlaws disperse, and Anna calls the old man's dog to follow her. Edward visits Albert's residence as Albert awakens in the afternoon to his grouchy father George and his unresponsive mother Elsie. Albert questions Edward about why he isn't with Ruth engaging in intimacy, but it is revealed that, as devout Christians, both Edward and Ruth are abstaining until marriage. Albert is puzzled by this revelation, but accompanies Edward to observe the ice being delivered from Boston. They then notice Louise out with her new beau, a wealthy man with a mustache named Foy. Albert is infuriated witnessing them kissing but proceeds with Edward to witness the massive block of ice being transported. As he explains to Edward the reason for the enormous size of the ice block, the rope holding it snaps, causing the block of ice to crush a man's head, much to the horror and revulsion of Albert and Edward. During a church service, the pastor introduces Anna and her criminal brother Louis. Albert enters a shop that offers products to help with facial hair growth, but Foy makes fun of him for trying it and brags about being intimate with Louise. Later that night at the saloon, a cowboy, who is the pastor's son, accidentally bumps into Louis, spilling his drink. Louis demands a new drink, but the cowboy pours him a shot and then extinguishes his cigar in it. In response, Louis shoots the man, leading to a chaotic brawl in the bar. The men viciously attack each other, causing injuries like broken arms and stab wounds, while Albert and Edward feign a fight to avoid being targeted, demonstrating their agility. Albert notices 2 men nearly falling onto Anna as she pours herself a drink, but he steps in and rescues her. He escorts her out of the saloon, and they sit together by a cliff as she rolls him a cigarette. Albert shares his frustrations with Anna about his situation with Louise, but Anna believes he is a good person and that Louise made a mistake. A diamondback snake passes by them, prompting them to stay still to avoid getting bitten. Anna then persuades Albert to take her to the fair during the weekend to make Louise envious. Anna confronts Louis in jail, scolding him for getting himself into trouble and expressing her desire for Clinch's downfall. Louis warns her against speaking in such a manner. On the day of the fair, Albert walks with Anna and remarks that even at the fair, accidents can occur that may result in death. This statement is proven true when a photographer accidentally sets himself on fire while taking a picture of a couple, leading two men to shoot them with rifles. Albert and Anna encounter Louise and Foy. After exchanging playful remarks, Albert proposes a wager with Foy at the shooting range for some cash. They engage in a controversial shooting game called Swift Escape, where Foy impressively hits all 6 targets with 6 shots. Anna then intervenes to spice up the challenge. She opts for the game to be played at its fastest pace so Foy can owe Albert $1. Surprising everyone, she instructs the operator to set the speed to the maximum, hitting each target swiftly. Foy reluctantly hands over the dollar, much to the amazement of the onlookers. Despite Foy's taunting, Albert challenges him to a gun duel the following day. Although Foy accepts, Albert immediately regrets his decision. Anna takes it upon herself to coach Albert on proper shooting techniques. Setting up tin cans as targets, Albert struggles to hit any at first. After numerous attempts, he finally manages to hit one, but continues to struggle even at close range. With practice, he gradually improves his aim. Anna rewards his progress with a cannabis-infused cookie, which Albert hesitantly consumes due to his aversion to drugs. Eventually, they enjoy watching the sunset together while under the influence. Later, the sheriff delivers Lewis his nightly meal in jail, only to be overpowered by Lewis, who seizes the opportunity to escape by fatally injuring the sheriff. Prior to the impending gunfight, Albert and Anna attend a barn dance, with Anna donning an attire accentuating a curvaceous figure. Once again, they observe Foy and Louise's presence as the festivities kick off. Foy instructs the bandleader to play a tune celebrating the joys of having a mustache, poking fun at Albert for his inability to grow one. Anna volunteers to fetch them some whiskey by tricking the bartender into believing his fly is down. Before leaving with Albert, Anna slips a laxative into a drink for Foy and tricks him into consuming it. She then criticizes Louise for allowing Albert to leave and mocks her large eyes. Albert and Anna share a drink and establish a connection, following which he has a sheep deliver a photograph of a man smiling to Anna, an action considered foolish in a place like the Wild West where people don't smile in photographs, with doing so being perceived as a sign of insanity. Albert kisses Anna, but promptly apologizes for the gesture. He escorts her back to her hotel, where she returns the kiss. Unfortunately, Lewis witnesses the entire interaction. While riding home, Albert notices a mysterious light emanating from a barn. Upon investigating, he discovers a man resembling Doc Brown from the Back to the Future series, working on a DeLorean. Doc conceals the vehicle and claims it's part of a weather experiment. Albert departs, and Doc exclaims, "Great Scott!" On the day of the gunfight, Anna hears a knock on her door, assuming it's Albert, only to find Clinch at the door. In the town square, Albert awaits Foy for their shootout, but Foy emerges unsteadily due to his ongoing bowel troubles. In a surprising turn of events, Foy defecates in one man's hat and then another before preparing for the duel. Albert drops his belt and gun, expressing his reluctance to proceed. He tells Louise that he still cares for her, but is willing to let her be with Foy, believing that he has emotionally moved on. He visits Anna's hotel room and discovers that she is not present, but notices her belongings scattered about. Accompanied by Edward and Ruth, he heads to the bar, feeling abandoned once more, until Clinch unexpectedly arrives and reveals that someone was seen kissing his wife. Bringing Anna into the picture, Albert begins to connect the dots. Clinch demands to know the identity of the man involved and directs the inquiry to a nearby cowboy, portrayed by Ryan Reynolds in a brief appearance, who he promptly shoots. Seizing Anna, Clinch threatens her to disclose the name of the man who kissed her under the threat of harming Plugger. Reluctantly, she confesses that it was Albert. As Clinch starts to undress for a liaison with Anna, she retaliates by striking him on the head with a rock. Attempting to ride off on her horse, she spots Clinch with his trousers down and amusingly plants a daisy in an unfortunate spot. Seeking out Albert, she finds him packing his things, feeling let down by yet another woman he cared for. Despite Anna's declaration of love, Albert remains closed off due to her deception, prompting him to bid her farewell. Before leaving, Anna warns Albert about Clinch's tell of shooting on the count of 2. Clinch ventures to Albert's farm with Lewis and another thug in search of him. Hiding amidst his sheep, one of which proceeds to relieve itself on him, Albert narrowly escapes on horseback as Clinch takes aim. Galloping across the train tracks just ahead of an approaching train, Albert boards the train for a getaway. After riding some distance, an assailant throws a rock, rendering Albert unconscious. Meanwhile, Edward and Ruth decide to consummate their relationship amid concerns of Clinch's menacing presence. Edward, encountering Ruth's intimate area for the first time, experiences a mix of anxiety and excitement. They begin to engage in intimacy until Anna knocks on the door, seeking a place to hide. Lewis later bursts in but does not locate Anna. She escapes through the window of Edward's residence and encounters Clinch in front of her, holding the daisy she placed in an awkward spot. Albert wakes up to find himself bound to a post. He realizes that he is surrounded by the Apache Native American tribe. The Apache leader, Cochise, instructs someone to execute Albert due to his affiliation with the opposing White Fool group, but Albert surprises them by speaking their language, revealing that he devoted a lot of time to learning it. The Native Americans release him, feeling they can trust him simply because he can converse in their language. They sit him around a campfire and offer him a beverage to bolster his confidence in facing his challenges. Despite being handed a bowl to sip from, Albert finishes the entire drink, which was intended for the tribe. Albert then experiences a surreal dream sequence in which he reminisces about his childhood, where his father showed little regard for his birth and tricked him into placing his tooth beneath his pillow for the tooth fairy, only to find a pile of manure instead. He recalls his graduation ceremony where Abraham Lincoln delivered a boisterous and unrefined speech. Subsequently, Albert envisions himself in a field with Anna reprimanding Louise for allowing Albert to escape, accompanied by a reference to Louise with enlarged eyes. A flock of sheep resembling Foy gathers and sings the mustache song. A doorway materializes, with a sheep instructing Albert to open it at his discretion. The doorknob resembles a snake, which hisses at Albert, but he seizes it and opens the door to encounter Anna adorned in a bridal gown, eagerly waiting for him. He steps through the doorway to discover only a condor bearing Clinch's visage swooping down towards him. He fires at it and then kicks it in the groin. He snaps back to reality and realizes he has mustered the bravery to do what is necessary. Albert expresses his gratitude to the Native Americans and departs. The following day, Clinch seizes Anna as a hostage in the town square, anticipating Albert's arrival. Albert appears for the gunfight challenge, compelling Clinch to release Anna. They draw their weapons, and recalling Anna's advice, Albert shoots Clinch in the arm. Clinch retaliates by shooting the gun out of Albert's hand and prepares to end him. Albert pleads for Anna's safety, despite her deception, and performs a comical death chant before Clinch succumbs to weakness and collapses. Albert unveils that the Native Americans taught him how to extract venom from a diamondback snake and coat his bullet with it. Knowing he wouldn't hit Clinch directly, he manages to graze him. Edward and Ruth dampen Albert's victory by revealing Clinch's demise before his speech. With Clinch eliminated, Anna rushes back to Albert's embrace. Louise approaches, seeking reconciliation with Albert, who dismisses her to be with Anna. They depart together, with Anna mentioning a reward for Clinch's vanquisher. Albert uses it to acquire a large herd of sheep, spreading across a vast area. Anna remains by his side, and they share a kiss amid their flock. Before the closing credits, a new competitor enters the runaway slave game, Django. He eliminates the game operator instead of participating, asserting, "People perish at the fair." Post-credits, he requests a white companion to join him. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you want to watch more videos like this. Thank you for watching and see you again soon. Take care.